Hey, Will, how you doing? You're muted. You're muted. Okay. Hi, Julia.
Okay, how are we?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
You having a good summer, Will?
So far. Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Julia?
Yeah, we went to the beach last weekend, so I feel
Oh,
like
nice.
summer has started.
Good. Do you know Will Bigby?
Well, I haven't met him in person. I mean, I think we've been in
No.
maybe one virtual meeting together, but
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't get a chance to send that little note over to Pat to add to the agenda, but we can talk about it. You know, from the foundation.
yes, thank
Yeah.
you. I was like, I remember sending you something, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. Good.
We may not have a meeting.
Well, we should. I don't, I hope.
I know, me too.
Well, our quorum has dropped because, we removed some people from the board. So we may have a quorum actually.
Oh, just down to three of us?
Yeah, well, I think there's 5 all total, right, Pat? There's Vicky, Victoria, and Shameen. And I think that's it, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
That's right. That's right. We're down 4, so we have 5.
Yeah,
now.
so we
So
do
we already
quorum.
have a quorum, actually.
Yeah, but I'm sure that Victoria and Shameen will be on soon. Why don't we give them a few more minutes?
Okay.
Julia, what do you do? What is your job? Just curious.
So I'm the director of an early childhood research center at Eastern Connecticut
Oh.
State University.
Good. Neat.
I did get a copy of what Julia sent
Oh,
out.
okay, good.
It's actually pretty similar to what's going out all over the place.
Right.
The only piece that I saw that was missing in it is the food insecurity issue, which is huge, particularly with prices going up and energy.
Yeah, because when we were
so-
discussing it, we came up with housing, housing insecurity, food insecurity, and mental health and drug treatment. So wellness would fit right in with that. So we're
Right.
really pretty close to what they were talking about. So
Right. And mental health is,
Yep.
substance abuse is mental health. So,
right.
along with domestic violence and a number of other things that kind of fit under that category. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we have it fairly well covered. We can get the town to go along with it.
I have a feeling they're going to go along with whatever you guys suggest. I mean,
Okay.
based on, they were pretty impressed with what you did at the meeting. So,
Uh-huh. Oh, good. You mean what Julia did at the meeting?
Oh,
Well,
well,
represented the work of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, did a good job too. Hey, Victoria,
Hi, Victoria.
you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay for being in the office on a beautiful day like this.
I know it, huh? You got to retire. That's your problem.
Next year, 1 year. Woo-hoo.
Good. Well, why don't we get started and maybe Shameen will jump in. Okay, so I'll call the
Okay.
meeting to order. And have you all had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Mhm.
And are there any additions or changes? All right.
Nope.
Can I have a motion that we accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay, great. So the minutes have been passed. So Pat, you want to do your report?
Well, I did send it out to you
Right.
in writing. Just to go over, we ended the fiscal year, fortunately, in the black for our department due to some staff transitions and some savings around, when we opened and closed and some of, also I think a lot of agencies are saying training has changed. There's a lot more of it is happening. There's a lot less travel. There's a lot more that's computer based and or not available in some circumstances, depending on it. So for the last several years, we've had quite a bit of savings in that area. That is changing, and we are adding another staff member on this year. So, I'm anticipating seeing those expenses probably gradually coming back. I do think they'll continue to do a lot virtually because people tend to like that format. I'll be
Right.
honest with you. Dorothy has accepted the position as community assistance community assistance programs coordinator. So her position as human service specialist is open. We do have a very good internal candidate. We're waiting to hear if she accepts the position. If so, that will be, really good for us because right now what's ending up happening is essentially Dorothy and Leslie are doing double duty because they are expecting her to do the responsibilities of her new position, and we don't really have anybody to do the very essential duties that she did for our whole office. She's, that position is pretty much the only app we have. We do have, a small amount of part-time hours, and Leslie's done a fantastic job at that, but that's kind of the glue that keeps our department going. So hopefully it'll be great to have someone internal because they'll understand, the town, how some of those basic admin things that can happen. So have a very successful Pride Month this month. I don't know how many of you got an opportunity to engage in any of the activities, but it's been, very powerful for me, particularly some of the comments that people have made to me about how good they feel about their town being so welcoming and affirming and accepting, and progressive. So that's been really, nice. And our department has pretty much spearheaded that, but everybody else has kind of jumped on the bandwagon, which is great. So, this was very successful, hoping we're going to have an even more successful program this next year. All of our summer stuff is starting, don't want to list all of it, but, our groups and programs are full. We're pretty excited about that through youth services. And because the town has had so many transitions and vacancies, we're not like any other agency right now that's going through the great, what do they call it? Resignation is what they're calling it, the great resignation. Those of you who have had anything to do with recruitment in the last period of time know what a challenge that's become. It also is a challenge because we have a small HR department that really isn't equipped to handle this number of, this volume of recruitments. So that's been a bit of a challenge as well. I'm really hoping we had some good candidates for even though it was a small pool for our last recruitment. I'm hoping several of those people come back, as well as maybe some new people. So if you know know anybody that's LMS or MSW or LCSW who is really interested in working in youth, please pass that along because it is a great place to work. So, Senior Center has got all of its activities going. I did put some statistics in there for you on that, obviously, because we had partial closing this year, as well as it's taking people a while to kind of get back into the swing of coming back into the center in some of our programs. Our statistics are lower than they have been in what I would call a normal year, although what is a normal year these days, but I'm happy to see that coming back a bit, and as well as we are still doing hybrid and some completely virtual programming, and I think that's going to continue. I've been looking at different online virtual senior centers that we may be able to link up with as well, so that there's a couple of centers that are doing it in a very good, sophisticated way right now. And I'm hoping we can develop some partnerships in that so that we can offer even more high quality virtual programming for our people, along with what we are already doing here. So don't want to take up too much time. If you have any questions, first Farms to Families happened yesterday. So Senior Center was filled with our office space was filled with some wonderful local produce, everything from fresh chicken and eggs and milk and maple syrup to fresh beets and carrots and lettuce and zucchini. It was really quite a wonderful experience, and we can help up to 100 households with all those fresh products several times a year from local farmers, and that's through this year it's through the grant that we have with the Austin Foundation. We'll also be able to continue that for the next 2 years under the ARPA program, so we're excited about that as well, because it's serving both the need with the farmers as well as local people. So, and we are also we've partnered with regionally with several Wyndham organizations in a request for another similar Farms to Family program that would go all the way throughout the year, through the winter months as well. So, that's an 18-month grant, and it would serve Wyndham area, Wyndham Willimantic area, as well as Mansfield and a couple of other of the smaller towns surrounding. So that will be a pretty good deal as well if that comes through. So those are kind of some of the things we're doing with food insecurity. Our RARE program, we've had 4 applications for that. That's through ARPA funds as well. So,
Pat, how much money have you raised for the Farms to Families with your mailing?
They've raised several $1,000s, which is great. Plus the 15 that we got from Austin, the Austin Foundation, plus the fact that the town now has funded, that's part of that new position, the community outreach program, assistant program coordinator's position. So the town's invested in that as well. So I see between the donations, the grants, our partnerships, that program being an ongoing program, which is just fantastic for everybody involved. So
Right. Yeah.
It's just good to see all those fresh vegetables and, local products.
Right.
Listen to the farmers. The farmers love this program,
Right.
the local farmers, and people do too. I mean, there's nothing like getting, those products that have just been picked.
Right. Good. You have anything else?
No, unless you have any questions.
No, does anybody have any questions of Pat? I'm just looking for my agenda. You know, I've lost it somehow. Which is par for the course with these computers. Yeah. Let's see here.
So while we're waiting, Pat, where does the Farm to Families food get distributed?
This year it's at the senior center. It was just too difficult for, I mean, at first it was at the schools because the schools were closed. And then it moved to the library. But since it's really heavily my staff that organize it, that was a real challenge for them because what ends up happening is, again, it's fresh and a lot of it is, you know, vulnerable to heat. So we actually got another refrigerator freezer in our, you know, on the human service side so that we could store it and save it. But we have people with issues with transportation. We have, well, just, you know, a number of people with what I would call capacity issues of different sorts.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of this year we've got did it at two times, early in the morning and late at, you know, at 5 to 7. So there were 2 times to pick up, and then we still have to do some deliveries for people who have no options for transportation. So it is staff and volunteer heavy. That's the only way I can say it. It's a wonderful program, but so it's a lot easier to do out of our offices because then the products are there if someone's late or can't make it, or, you know, and we have the storage to hold it safely. So, but, you know, it ties up a third of the senior center parking lot plus. So we have to work it around dates that and times that work for the senior center as well. So.
Sounds good. Okay, you know your video's off, Pat. You know that, right?
I do. I'm actually, we have a personal family issue, so I'm
Oh.
not in the office now, but I wanted to be
Okay.
part of the meeting.
Okay. All right. Budget update.
Okay, that's what I just said. We are coming into budget, you know, under expended, which is great. Starting the new year, right after the 4th of July. There are a couple of challenges. This is the first full time that the town is rolling over into the Munis system. Our staff is doing it versus the Munis personnel. So we're hoping there aren't too many kinks. At this point, we're a little bit in a holding pattern because we can't really pre-do early expenditure POs. So there are some financial challenges as well as they're short-staffed in finance as well. So it's going to be an interesting changeover from a budgetary point of view. But the good news is we do have more funds than we had last year, which is nice.
How much more do we have? Do you know?
Well, we have enough to do everything we had before. Some of those lines are stable, and they added on interpreter services, you know, high-end interpreter services for our department. The senior center got that usually gets $5,000 for programming, got $15,000 in this next fiscal year that we don't have to recoup in fees, which is great. And again, a new staff member, full-time staff member, 2 new full-time staff members with their salaries and the accompanying, you know, things for training and programmatic expenditures for those 2 new employees. And we got 5 additional hours a week for our nutrition coordinator, Sharon, over at the senior center, which is great because that's one of the biggest areas of need that's been identified, as well as, you know, as people want more services in the area of nutrition and food options. So we're pleased that they're going to do that. Plus the ARPA funds will help they've added some driver hours and some food service hours, and then some food funds that we don't have to recoup for senior services as well.
Good.
So we did pretty good this year in the budget.
Good. That's good to hear.
And thanks for, thanks to Youth Service Advisory, who was really the pusher that got the additional position in youth services. I will have to say that, carried the most impact. Wouldn't you say, Ethel?
No, I thought you were done. I was just gonna move on.
Yep. No, that's fine.
But that thing was down to the youth services, the committee, we've been asking, well, as long as you've been, and way
Mhm.
before you came, for that position. Finally, you were able to get it for us, so we certainly is
Well,
appreciated.
And in the 9 years that I've been here, when I first started, there was one social worker,
Yeah,
and now we'll be up to 3.
yeah, so. been good.
And we had a part-time early childhood coordinator, and now we have a full-time early childhood coordinator. So, and most of that has really been the Youth Service Advisory pushing for additional, and we've seen some staffing also in on the senior center side as well, including a full-time social work position over there now.
Good.
And the new position over in the social service, the community. So yeah, I think the pandemic really showed some of the huge needs that are out there.
Right. Good. All right, moving on to old business, update on the status of the grants, the agency process.
Well, you guys can speak to that because you went to the council.
Yeah, Julia, you want to speak to that?
Well, okay, let me remember what happened. So they approved our process for the regular local agency grants and then acknowledged that not everything from that would apply to ARPA because there are very specific pieces that we have to follow, federal guidelines for that. And also the timeline is going to be different because some of the money has already arrived, if I'm remembering correctly, Pat, and we want to get that out as soon as possible. So I think
I believe all of the money now has arrived, just so you know. The second trench of it has come in as well. So all of the money's there now.
okay.
So it's ready to be spent.
So I assume that our next step is then to review the guidelines from the feds so that we can create an RFP that includes all of those, that follows all of those guidelines.
Correct. And I had sent those guidelines, the guidelines, the summary out to you guys. It was a while ago.
Right.
I can resend it.
Yeah, would you please?
But I was going to say, it was a while ago. So it was the final summary that they had, because that was the problem. It was in process, even as the money was coming out. They were still making some decisions about how it could be spent. So, but that's finalized, and that's what I sent the summation of that out to you.
So at this point, the only guidelines that we know of are the ones that are coming from the feds. There's nothing from town that they've come up with for guidelines.
So the town is really looking to your committee to come up with that.
Okay.
I
that's
mean,
what
I think a couple of broad things that they want to make clear is these are one-shot deal grants. So what they would probably look less favorably on is if someone was asking for funds that then they were going to have no plan for continuity if it was a program that needed to be continuous. So for example, if someone started a counseling program that then there would be no funding for after ARPA ended. So that they also want some idea of if people have gotten other ARPA funds, because they don't want to duplicate what people have already gotten. And I think that's one of the things that's really hard for us to know because of the way it was what went out. It's hard to actually know which agencies got it and which didn't. For example, I know when you talked about early childhood before, I know MDD got a lot of money through, and that's because they're connected to the town. I don't know what other early childhood centers might have got.
Well, that's a really good question for the grant application.
Right.
I would think.
Right, and I think the
follow-up
council want to
conversation.
see that as well. They want to make sure it's agencies that serve Mansfield. I mean, obviously, they're not looking to not do things for people who serve the region, but they want to make sure that Mansfield's being served and it's meeting a need. And then again, like I said, it's got to fall into some of the categories that they have, which, all of that food insecurity, housing, equipping agencies to serve safely. That's the only way, if someone needed, for example, to buy equipment so that they could do virtual counseling sessions, or equip some of their staff rooms so it was it was safer. So some of those things are allowable, but I don't think they're taking things off the table. I think Victoria mentioned something like, if it's an agency who has no other way to get funding to do a capital project, as long as that agency is serving the needs that are identified in ARPA.
Okay.
What, again, is the total amount that we have to distribute?
$350,000.
Okay.
And it has to be distributed by, I think we've got a little over 2 years. So what that may mean is that it doesn't mean that the first wave of applications is, is, I don't know if you'd call it rolling, because I don't think you want to call it rolling, but there's not the pressure on the committee to give it all out that first time, because you can do another RFP afterwards. You still have time to give the money out another time. They also didn't say, they didn't limit, they didn't say we want to give 10, we want to give 20. They're asking you guys to kind of make recommendations to them, the low end and the high end of funding, approximately how many agencies and what the priority will be. Are probably big things. They'll be looking at you as the experts in this area to come back with a proposal.
Okay.
And when do they need that proposal by?
Whenever you guys feel. I think when we were talking, we had hoped that sometime in the fall we could put that out, correct?
Yes.
In order to do that, you're probably going to have to meet over the summer. I just don't know how you couldn't, or even break up and have everybody doing little pieces of it and kind of working together.
New England is the only place on earth where we feel like we don't work as hard in the summer. It's so weird to me. I've worked in California for a long time. Seasons don't mean a darn thing out there. So, we meet over the summer, That's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the last time summer was like a lighter year in human services. I mean, it's been, we have different things that come in, it ebbs and flows, but it's just, you're onto something new. So, but it's just that the committee has normally not met in July and August.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all. So, but I know for a fact that Commission on Aging is meeting over the summer, correct, Will? Because they're going to be looking at senior centers and responding to some of the facility needs. So,
Yeah.
that's what special meetings are for.
Well, it's easier, especially if we're doing it virtually, to have those meetings also.
Yeah.
Right.
So, well, we should probably wait to, if you send those guidelines over, and then everybody look at it, and then we'll set up something to discuss.
Right.
How's that sound?
We
I'll set
just
up a
have to
meeting.
do it the same way, where, especially if it's a special meeting.
Right.
So the agendas still have to go in. The difference between a special and a regular meeting is you can only discuss what's on the agenda. So, which I think is going to be fine, because the ARPA funds are what you're going to need to discuss, correct?
Yeah. That's the only reason we're going to be meeting.
Right.
Right. So, yes, I will send that information out to you, and then
And then I'll set up.
you can set up a meeting. I have a busy summer, but you can meet without me.
Right.
My daughter's getting married.
Oh, nice.
And then it's our 40th anniversary, so we're all going to Hawaii in August. So
Very exciting.
No, you have to stay here.
a lot of stuff going on. Pardon?
You have to stay here. You can't go to Hawaii, you know. But we could do that. How's that sound to everybody? Is that
Thumbs
okay?
up. Yeah,
Well, that takes care of new business then, right? Because we've talked about funding and
Right.
special meetings.
right.
The only other thing that's
Does
not on,
anybody else have anything?
the only thing that's not on there that you may want to discuss is you're down 4 members now.
Oh, right.
And not that you have to add, but it may be a good time, particularly with the business that's coming up, to think about who you might add. Because I think you should consciously think about who would be a good addition.
Okay.
Especially since this group has a lot of work to do.
Right.
Do we have some guidelines around membership for the board? Like so many from the nonprofit sector, or so many from the faith-based sector, so many from business, that type of thing?
It's in our charge that we just redid.
Okay,
So, I mean, the groups that at this point, we
that's right. That's
don't
right.
have anybody that, that I'm thinking about, or somebody who is either from the disabled community or an advocate. Our professional works in the, the disabled community.
Mhm.
That's one. Housing, because we just lost our person because she couldn't find affordable housing in town, so she moved to another town. So, and she was our housing person. And the other 2 were at-large members. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Okay, and then Julia, do you want to talk about the stuff from the foundation and what they're suggesting about the opera stuff, or?
Oh, sure. I think it just supports the direction that we were already heading. So the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut had posted kind of a call to municipalities and other government agencies about how to spend their ARPA funds. And they are urging governments to set aside, if I'm remembering this correctly, 30% of the money for 3 areas, which was early childhood, mental health, and was the other one housing? Am I remembering that right?
yes,
Probably.
yeah,
So-
affordable housing. Although I
Yes.
would argue it's low-income housing we need, not affordable,
Yeah.
but we need affordable too, but we really are losing our low income out, our people that are lower income on that
Right.
spectrum, working poor. So we're losing.
Yeah, so it more was just something that I wanted to share, as in this is what, one of the regional foundations that serves a lot of different needs is saying that they think the biggest needs are, but it's very much aligned with what we've been talking about. And they're only saying 30%, which in this case would only be about $15,000 or something of the 350.
I can say that that most towns are not doing what Mansfield's doing. Most towns are not passing on money to nonprofits. They're doing internal stuff, which isn't bad, but I think there's a call once you read that summation that I'm going to send you to really reach out to the nonprofit and recognize that the nonprofit, and the regional agencies offer significant services and programs to the people that we serve beyond government. So.
Well, that's certainly true here. And I'm glad that you brought up housing, because that's something that I was gonna ask about. We're having tremendous issues around eviction and folks not
Yes.
able to pay rent. And I'm wondering what that's looking like in Mansfield.
It's looking the same as it's looking everywhere else.
Yeah.
With the twist that affordability, we have the student population that pushes affordability of
So
even
do
what we would call very blighted property here in town
Right.
is outside of the reach. And unfortunately, landlords are buying right into that and making it. I mean, I've talked with some very sad situations where landlords have raised the rents, for example, $50 over the amount that a Section 8 will allow for a particular size.
So what are you doing with your referrals, Pat? What are you doing for these folks who are coming and saying that they don't have money for rent? I'm just curious because
Yeah,
right now we're trying to farm people out to legal services because there's
Right.
just not enough money to pay all of the back rents and keep them
Right.
sustainable. So
Right. well, and I can speak, our RARE program. I mean, it's great because it can pay mortgages but it only can pay $1,500. I saw a person the other day that was $13,000 behind on their mortgage. $1,500 is going to do absolutely nothing for that. So what I talked to them about was, because we can use it for other bills, because there's just no way that we could do anything about that. There are some other programs that we're referring them to because that, some of the programs open back up, which I know that you're aware of, but some of these people are so far in debt, there's nothing you can do. The only thing we can do is help them pay their first month's rent in a new place if they can find something.
and there's a big bottleneck with getting to the funds that are actually out there. There's not enough staff, like for example, in the Access Agency to even administer the rental
Correct.
and mortgage assistance programs. So I'm wondering if that's something that somehow we take this into consideration, because I still feel anyway that this is, overflow from COVID issues. So it's not necessarily the kind of thing that would need to be sustainable for the long run, but it would be beneficial to the community if we had some kind of fund that could help to a greater degree with rental and mortgage assistance.
Right. It's like I said, the RARE program has $150,000 in it. It has a cap per household of $1,500.
The
Some
rare,
people that really rare. It's only for Mansfield residents. Was established. The town established it out of ARPA funds.
oh, I didn't even know
So
about it.
That's Dorothy. Dorothy, it's one of the programs Dorothy's administering.
Great.
So yes, the challenge with that, and this, is that many people need so much more than that.
Right.
And they
but-
have to be screened because we won't throw good money after bad. So that
No,
person, for
exactly.
example, with $13,000 mortgage, there's no way we're going to pay $1,500 for that,
Right,
but we
but we
might be able to help them with a utility bill, which if they moved, they need to pay their utility bill or they won't be able to get their utility turned on,
Right.
in the next place. So we're able to, it is more flexible than some other programs, but it's a limited amount of money. Because again, it's ARPA money, but it's local ARPA money.
Can we get that cap raised above 1,500? 1,500 is nothing.
I know, but that what then ends up happening is you're using it on fewer people. The thought was 1,500 people, it could serve 100 different households. So you're right.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's something. I mean, it's something Mansfield has that other places don't. And we have helped people. We can't pay a security deposit, but the person can use the money they have for a security deposit and we can pay the first month's rent. You know what I mean? We can pay utility bills, back utility bills. I can even argue that a phone bill, if it's the person's only source of contact and they have health problems, or if that's their source of how they're searching for work, so different things that we can argue for it. But again, it's not a bottomless pit of money, but it's more money.
Mhm.
So,
Alrighty.
I mean, what are you looking, what are you finding is your average amount people are looking for?
It's usually a couple of months. I would say $4,000 to $6,000
Yeah,
around there. And we try to, we wind up piecing it together, what we can't cover
Right.
ourselves. So
and
we
that's
just,
what I would say, this might be a piece. It's probably not gonna be the full.
but what kills me is we have a big pot that's earmarked for energy and electricity and all the other things that you're talking about that we cannot
Right.
spend on rental assistance, but we don't have enough money for rental assistance. So in my dream world, I would love if the directors of all of the basic needs providers would just sit down at the table and say, this is what we have. This is what we have in our community. Okay, Pat, why don't you concentrate on rental assistance up until this amount? And Wayne, you concentrate on energy assistance because that's where you have your money, and you'd have an easier idea of where to refer people to one place instead of all of this knitting.
Right. I think our other challenge is, again, remember, this is ARPA money, so it can only be used in the ways that ARPA intended.
Correct.
So, and utilities are part of what they, and I'll be honest with you, when people have been coming in for the Helping Hands program, those were two of the big things that they noticed: high utility bills,
Right.
mortgages, and rental. And that was kind of the case finding. Again, the challenge is it's a pot of money that once it's gone, it's gone. It's not coming back. So you want to best use it to help the most amount of people. So you're right. We can be a partner in that, but you're right.
I'm all
You
about
work.
spend. You spend the money, and then when that runs out, you get more money.
From
To me,
where?
that's-
This is from the
where-
federal government. That's
from wherever. I mean, that's what we do all the time. We spend it down, and then when we run out, we try to raise more, because
yeah.
I don't know. It's just more expensive to help people now than it used to be.
Right. And I will say, the Helping Hands money is ending, and it can go until the end of December, but what it's looking like it's going to run out probably by the end of October. And then we're going to have those people who've been getting this help for a couple of years, significant help with groceries. That's again, money that's gone. It was federal money that, federal grant that we got.
There's almost no end to this, huh?
Nope.
Terrible.
There isn't.
Okay, why don't we leave it at this? Then you'll send out the opera guidelines, and then
Hmm.
within the next 2 weeks, I'll send out some dates for a meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Sounds good.
okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? No?
No.
Matt, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion for adjournment then.
You got it.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get started.
Have a
Well,
good summer.
Everybody have a
I'll
great
be
weekend.
talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the
everybody.
wedding,
Bye-bye.
Pat.
Yeah. See you guys.